Sing that with me one more time to close. Blessed be the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Blessed be the Lord. Oh, on eagle's wings, on eagle's wings. Lord, your word says that those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings as eagles. They'll run and not be weary. They'll walk and not faint. So teach us, Lord, how to worship. Teach us, Lord, how to wait. Teach us, Lord, how to glorify your name. Teach us, Lord, how to love you, Lord, the way that you deserve to be loved. You are great, greatly to be praised. In the city of our God, in the mountain of your holiness, oh God, you're worthy of all praise. So we praise your name. We praise your name. Come on, lift your voice. We praise your name, oh God. We praise your name, oh Lord. Declaring you are holy, holy, holy is your name. Declaring you are holy, holy. As we magnify your name, we say you are holy, holy, holy is the name of the Lord Most High. Lord Most High. nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're my living hope. Your presence, Lord. I've tasted and I've seen of the sweetest of love, where my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place into the atmosphere. With glory, God, your glory, God, is what our hearts long to be overcome, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Welcome, Lord, come flood this place into the atmosphere. With glory, God, your glory, God, is what our hearts long to be overcome, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. There's nothing worth more that will never come close. Nothing can compare. You're my living hope. It's in your presence, oh God, that's where we belong. It's in your presence, Lord, that's when we're strong. We need your presence. We need your presence, Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Come, 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 Holy Spirit. Come, come, take your place. Come, come, Holy Spirit. Come.
Ask the Holy Spirit to come.
Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit.
Take back the Holy situation, whatever it is today. Come, Holy Spirit. Let your power, Holy Spirit, come. Come and overtake every crisis, every issue in our life. Now, come, Holy Spirit, invite him in. Gave me a word for Olga and Derek, Colossians 2:7, and that tree fell on your truck, and the roots literally gave up, you know, when it began to rain. And Pastor John and I experienced that same thing after an unusual, freaky rain just came over in Georgia, and big oak tree, like 3 feet, maybe even larger wide both ways, uprooted itself and fell over our driveway. The Lord spoke to me and said, He's doing something with the roots, with your roots. He's uprooting you from that house to another place, another location. But it has to do also like a prophetic thing that it's not just the devil, you know. I mean, I know it is a demonic attack. I know that, you know, you've gone through a lot the last couple of weeks. But Colossians 2:7, the Lord gave me for you just now as I was sitting there, and it says that you are rooted and built up in Him. That you are rooted and built up in Christ. And you have been established in the faith, as you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. So God is doing something with your roots. He's establishing new roots for you, you know, in that new house that's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. And that God is establishing a root that is so deep in Him that nothing will waver or shake you, even though circumstances come. This is part of your training as ministers. And it was also part of our training as ministers many years ago when that big oak tree uprooted itself and fell over our driveway. It was also a prophetic, it wasn't just demonic, you know, it was a prophetic act. And God began to deepen our roots in Him, that nothing would shake us and nothing would waver us, you know, nothing, not anything that would come in the future, because He tests us in little things, and then He enlarges our capacity to have a greater faith, and He's doing that in you, and He's proud of you. The Lord says He's so proud of you. Okay, so have a Thanksgiving. I know you already do, but it's about abounding in thanksgiving. Colossians 2:7. Amen? Praise God! And does anybody else feel, because I don't know everybody's circumstances, that you're under such attack? Like, you know, okay, lift your hand up. All right, Linda, would you go and pray for Rosa? Okay? Linda, would you go and pray for Josie? And somebody up here under severe attack. Kelly, would you go pray for Amber? Liz is here too. And Alan, would you turn around and pray for Derek? And Liz, would you pray for Olga? We're just going to lift them up. Come on. We're going to lift each other up today. That's what we're here for. Say, we are family. And we will stand with one another. Amen? Amen. All right. Let's just pray and worship. You guys just pray over them. Lift them up into a greater anointing, because that's what God is doing. It's not just a demonic attack for those of you that are going through it. It is God also allowing these things to release a new capacity in you. So receive it in Jesus' name. His glory, God is what my heart longs for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our heart longs for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our heart longs for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our heart longs for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our heart longs for, to be overcome by your presence, Thank you, Lord. Glory, worship you, Jesus. Glory to you. Just in a whisper, just say that word with me. Jesus. Say it with me. Jesus. You know there's power in that word. There's power in the name of Jesus. There's victory in the name of Jesus. There's healing in the name of Jesus. Salvation in the name of Jesus. Freedom in the name of Jesus.
All you've got to do is just cry out that name. Whatever the circumstance that you're facing, it can go. Just simply in that name.
Thank you, Jesus.
Jesus. It's my sweet rose of Sharon. He's my lily of the valley. He's my bright morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000s to my soul. And I am honored and I am privileged and proud to be able to associate with the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Hallelujah. To the house of the Lord again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Whew. Don't you just love being in His presence? You know, and I say it over and over again. It doesn't have to end just because we leave church. It doesn't have to end just because of the fact that we're not together. Sometimes we think we don't know what to do. We might get lost, so oftentimes we have the tendency of leaning on each other to help us to get to that place. And that's okay. Amen? I said, that's okay. To be able to lead. It's one thing to worship on your own, and it's a vital and it's an important thing. But when we can gather together, the Bible says how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And when the corporate anointing hits, when we worship together as a corporate setting, all of a sudden things begin to start taking place in the atmosphere. And you can believe for anything. I said you can believe for anything in your life. It makes no difference how hard. It makes no difference what the demands are that's being placed on you. You can meet these things with the power that's in the name of Jesus. That's yours. Hallelujah. And all we've got to do is what we've been talking about last week and what we're going to talk about again this week, and just to get into that place, because the Bible says that He inhabits the praises of His people. Think about it. You ever try to figure out, God, how do I get you to come and to spend some time with me? Call Him. Call Him. Just as in Revelation where it says the Spirit of the bride saying, come, Jesus is saying to you and I, come. It can come. Well, it makes no difference what condition you're in. You don't got to be perfect. I think we've tried for too long to be perfect before we can feel like we're adequate enough to come to God. God says, just come as you are. As a matter of fact, He says, come all you who labor and are heavy laden. And He says, I'll give you rest. He says, I'll teach you. Learn from me. He says, I'm meek, I'm lowly. My yoke is easy. My burden, it's light. I've got plans for you, Jeremiah 29 says, plans not to harm you, but plans to give you hope and a future. This is this Jesus that is calling out to you and I, not just on a Sunday morning, not just on a Wednesday night Bible study, but every single day of our lives, from the moment that we wake up, that breath that we can take and cry out, good morning, Lord. He's longing for us to be able to spend that time. We talked about last week how that it's important and how oftentimes do we miss it, that we plan plan our day from the moment we wake up to begin to get busy about what's going on. And when we struggle throughout the day, we wonder why. It's because we never invited him into our day. You see, we talked about, remember the tithe? That 10% process? Well, I'm trying to get to the place that I don't just tithe to God, but that I give him everything that I've got, because it's all his anyway. He paid the price. He shed his blood on the cross of Calvary. So I belong to him. Who am I to dare to think that I have a say-so in my life? There is a certain element of say-so, because I can tell God no. But I ain't that stupid. I used to be that stupid. Okay? But I ain't that stupid no more. Okay? Because I want everything of God. Everything that he is, all that he has, I want in my life. I want to be able to be like Jesus, who in 3.5 years, the books of this world could contain all that he had done. You say, well, I don't know if I've got 3.5 years left in my life. Well, you've got today. Okay? You've got today. All right? You've got a 24-hour period. Well, it's almost 11 o'clock, so you've got approximately about 12 hours left for some of you, maybe 15, 18 hours, because some of you are night people. Okay? I used to be a night person, but I'm an early morning person now. Okay? Because I'm learning how to invite Jesus into my day. So that when I go about the business of the day, I find where it functions a lot easier than what it would if I didn't. And in those days that I forget, because I got caught up with some things, maybe I planned in advance and not thinking, all of a sudden, when I'm going through something, I don't quite understand what's happening, and I realize, oh, Lord, I'm sorry. I forgot to invite you into my day. Because you see, it's all about him anyway. Amen? He's the one that leads us and guides us into all truth. He's the one that shows us the way. The Bible says that he's a lamp unto our feet. He's a light unto our path. So that path that he's put us on to walk on this earth, that we don't start wavering from it, because all of a sudden, if we go this way or that way, we'll stumble and we'll fall. I don't want to be like Peter. Maybe in the beginning, right, when he was in the boat, and the winds and the waves were hitting, but Jesus was walking on the water towards them. And all of a sudden, they saw Jesus and they got scared. And Jesus cries out, "Don't be afraid, it's me." And so Peter, Peter the loudmouth. Okay, Peter, he's the one that has always got to be in the forefront of everything, because it's almost like he wants to be the showboat of the group and everything else. He said, "Lord, if it's you, bid me to come." Watch what you ask God. Okay? Because if you ask, he'll provide. Okay? And so he did. So Jesus said, "Come." And guess what? Peter stepped out of the boat and he landed on the water. And he started to walk. It's an impossible task in the natural. But with God, all things are possible. Okay? All things. And he's trying to get us to be like him. Listen, Peter walked and it was all great and all wonderful as long as he focused in on Jesus. Remember we talked about last week about loving the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. In other words, he's got to be the very focal point. He's got to be the very attention of your life. Okay? You can't be saying, "Jesus, I love you." "Oh, hey, bro, how you doing?" Let's go do this. Then when it's convenient, then we come back and say, "Hey, Jesus, how's your day?" We've got to give him good time. We've got to give him what's rightfully his. And if it's 2 hours and 40 minutes a day as a tithe, then great. If you can give him 5-6 hours a day as a happy person who's in love with Jesus, and you've got that time to do it, then great. Okay? But give him something. But when you give him whatever it is, give it to him wholly. Okay? Don't mingle it with something else. Don't taint it. I remember when I was sick and I was going to try to find a doctor that would take care of my situation. And
And I didn't know what to do, and so I went to Washington, to a place up there where they did diagnostic stuff, and so I was so excited because I thought finally we're going to get this thing taken care of. And so we flew up there. We had airline tickets, we had hotel, we had car rental, we had food, and we were set up to be there for 2 weeks, and I thought this was going to be it. And after the first day, the doctor said, "Go home, find another doctor." I was disappointed because I thought for sure I was going to find an answer. Now we were stuck, guys. We were stuck there for 2 weeks. I didn't have the money to take it to change my airline. Okay, and I didn't know if the car dealer was going to take in and charge me for the full 2 weeks rental. Okay, and the hotel and everything else. So I had to trust God, and God took care of us in the process. But I remember this doctor that I had gone to that somebody suggested, and so they said, "Well, let's do a blood panel on you." And so I said, "Okay." And back in the day when needles were not my friend, all of a sudden needles became my friend. Because I was trying to find an answer. You ever find out that you can put up with stuff as long as you know that there's a good ending to it? Think about it. Think about it. Every time the doctors, when the nurses or the phlebotomist would take it and get ready because it's going to hurt, I said, "It's okay, because something's going to come out of it good." That was my mindset. So I was willing to do that. Okay? So this doctor says, "Okay, let's do a blood panel." I said, "Okay." And so she ended up taking the blood. And so she took the blood, and then a week later, I went in for the follow-up and to find out what the results were, and then what the plan was for this, And when I walked in, she goes, "Hey, Juan, how are you?" My legal name is Juan, so in case you're wondering. So she goes, "We got a problem." I said, "What's that?" She goes, "The lab, they tainted your blood. So we need some more blood." Okay. Now my arm was black and blue already from. I'm learning. Don't let doctors do that. Get a nurse. Nurses know better. Okay. And so she got the other arm, and she had me sprawl like this. And then so she stuck that needle and she missed it. She tried it again, and she got the blood, and then I went back a week later for the results, and she said, "Mr. Roman, it's not Juan anymore, that's Mr. Roman. They messed up again. We need more blood." I looked at her and I said, "You vampires. You blood-sucking vampires." Literally, so they took blood again. And so I don't know if they tainted it or not, but she wasn't going to do this again, so she said, "This is what we're going to do." And so they put me through this process and stuff. What I'm saying is this, is that when there's a focus on something that you're trying to find in your life, they make sure that they deal with it properly. When we try to deal with Christ in our life, how much of it is tainted by the struggles, or by the circumstances, or by the life's issues that come across our path. That we, like Peter, who walked on the water, but then all of a sudden his eyes and his ears and his mind got off of Christ and began to start looking at the waves coming across. And began to start hearing the rushing of the winds and everything that was going on around him, to where all of a sudden the Bible says that he began to sink. Now, even that, it's amazing within itself, the power of God that is able to hold Peter. Because listen, I've been in the ocean, okay, not anymore since I've seen Jaws, okay, but I've been in pools, and when I jumped off the deep end, I never landed on top of the water. I always went down to the bottom, okay, and then I had to push myself up so that I could take and get some air. All right. But Peter, the Bible says that he began to sink. Well, see, Peter was smart, because then what he did is he took it, he realized who was there. And so he cried out to the right source. He didn't cry out to the guys that were in the boat. All right? He cried out to Jesus. He called him Jesus, and Jesus was there immediately and just picked him up and they walk to the boat. They get on the boat. Okay? But when you spend time with God, is it pure? Is it unadulterated? Think about it. The worship today, by the way, praise and worship team, you guys did a wonderful job. And again, I want to say thank you to you guys because you guys allowed the Spirit of God to come and to minister and to be amongst us today. And that's a wonderful sense. That's a wonderful feeling that for me as a pastor, not only the senior pastor of the church, but as a worshiping pastor, that when we can take and touch the very heart of God in our worship, then I know that we're making progress. And I'm believing one day that we're going to touch God to such an extent that once again, as Isaiah 66 says, heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool, where is the house you will build for me? And we're going to be able to say, here, Lord. Here is a home. That you don't just come to visit, but that you can come and live. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't just have to happen here in the church. It can happen in your very home. He's not limited to the walls of the church. You are the church. You are the temple of the Holy Spirit. You house the very essence. You house the very presence of God. You're created in His image and in His likeness. So why do we limit God here and only bring Him here? It's wonderful, that corporate anointing. But if that's all you live for, remember I said, listen, church is not for just getting your needs met. Church is not for you to just for you to get healed. Okay? Church is a place of celebration so that we can rejoice together for the things that God has done for us throughout the week. Whether providing a need, whether it's healing a body, whether it's healing a family, whatever the situation might be, we can celebrate, we can testify about the goodness of what the Lord had done for us during the week. Let me tell you, and He's available to you 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, He's available to you. Because just because your mind is in a dormant situation, yet your spirit man is always active. Okay? And He's ministering, and if your spirit man's alive and going, then you can be a recipient even while you're sleeping of the things that God has for you, God. So that's good news. That's good news for you and I today. Amen? I just feel like I want to continue on for a little bit here about the heart of worship. The true heart of worship, or the heart of true worship. So part 2, look at John, the 4th chapter, verses 23 to 24. We read this the last time, and it's in the Message Bible, so it'll be up on the screen. If you don't have a Message Bible, which most of you probably don't. All right, look at what it says. It says, God's way of salvation is made available through the Jews. This is a story about Jesus going to a place, Samaria, to get some water. But you see, His plan, well, the plan was that it wasn't just for Him to get water, but for Him to minister to someone who was coming to get water. That truth would be revealed into their life that would set them free from the thirst that they longed for years. The thirst that brought, hear what I'm saying, the thirst that brought her men in her lives because of the thirst for affection. Okay? When they began a conversation, okay, and Jesus said, go get your husband. And she was honest with him. How many of us are honest with God like that when we've done things in our lives? See, she didn't just have one husband, she had 5 husbands. And even the guy that she lives with isn't her husband. Right? But you see, she was honest. She was open. She wasn't trying to hide nothing. And they began this conversation. And the conversation started going on, and she was saying, you know, we worship on this mountain, and you Jews worship someplace else. And then Jesus comes back and He begins to tell her. He says, listen, God's way of salvation is made available through the Jews. But the time is coming, and it has, in fact, come when what you're called will not matter. Whatever title you think you have, forget it. Okay? You got a business card? Throw it away. Cut it up. Like that credit card that some of you probably need to get rid of. Okay, you need to get rid of those business cards. Because he says that whatever title that you have, let me say this, if that is your, what? If that is your identity. Okay? If I'm an apostle, and that's what I live by, and I put it on a business card so that you'll know that's who I am, okay? Get rid of it. Okay? Because that's not who you are. Okay? We're sons and daughters of the Almighty God.
Yeah.
Okay? All right? We're heirs and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. All right? Listen, we're all apostles. We're all prophets. We're all evangelists. We're all pastors. We're all teachers. How can I say that? Very simply. Do you have the Holy Ghost inside you? Okay? Well, these are the attributes of the Holy Spirit that lives inside. That gives you the ability. And whenever it is that God needs something from you, then you're not limited to just being the apostle. You're not limited to just being the prophet. But you become what I love, what Jesus taught us in the example in Philippians, where he said, he says, you know, Christ, though he was God, yet didn't think it important to be equal with God. But took on the form of a flesh, took on the form of a servant, and became nothing. Instead became obedient to death, even the death of the cross. So what am I saying? I'm saying simply this. If you want to be great in the kingdom, you've got to be the least. If you want to be first, you've got to be the last. In other words, stop trying to be what's up here that's being categorized by ministry. Okay? I've said this before and I'll say it again. The higher in rank you go, the lower position you need to put yourself. Okay? I may be a pastor, but that's what was placed on me from those that put us in Saul's position. But you see, what I am more than anything else is a servant. Okay? A servant doesn't have a right to say no. A servant follows what the master dictates. Okay? And Jesus is my Lord. He's not just my Savior, he's my Lord. So he dictates what I do and what I say. And I don't say no to him. Because I know that if I say no to him, I'm going to encounter a challenge in my life that I'm not going to be happy with. Amen? So, let's go on. What you're called will not master. And where you go to worship will not matter. It's who you are and the way you live that counts before God. Your worship must engage your spirit in the pursuit of truth. That's the kind of people the Father is looking for those who are simply and honestly themselves before Him in their worship. God is sheer being Himself, Spirit. So those who worship Him must do it must do so out of their very being, their spirit, their true selves, in adoration. Amen. Amen. Did you understand that? I mean, you can't get more simple than what the Message Bible presented it to us. All right? If you're going to be a worshiper, then, by golly, then do it right. Be real about it. Okay? Stop being a pretender. Okay? We got too many of those going on in the world today. That they'll go in and they got this happy face and they got their hands up in the air, they're shouting and everything else, and then they go home and they act like the devil for the rest of the week. All right? That's not how it works if you want to get it right. All right? As a worshiping pastor, I've learned throughout the course of ministries that I've been blessed with, okay, that most people don't participate in worship because you tell them to. All right? Most people don't participate in worship because you tell them to. Instead, they can see and they can sense the very passion and the honesty that's in your worship. You see, what we are here on the platform is what we should be in our homes as well. Okay? And what goes on here, my prayer, and I share this with the praise and worship team, that what we do up here will definitely impact what goes on out here. Okay? And it's the same for you guys that are out there, that what goes on inside of you while you're out there, that when you walk out that door, and all of a sudden the devil's there to confront you about what happened, what transpired, who's going to win that battle? Okay? Is he going to take it and be able to say, see, I told you, you're a big phony. I told you that you're a liar. I told you you're a hypocrite. That's how important everything we do and everything we say matters. Because it impacts everything that goes on around us. When you leave here, you're going to go to your homes and your communities, and you're going to go to your workplaces, and you're going to go to the store, you're going to go to the gas station, and you're going to go to friends' homes or family homes and stuff like that. And what you've got going on in your life is going to impact and make an effect on everybody else that's around you. I shared that with somebody several years ago about what took place, what takes place in your life, how it impacts everything. And they made some bad decisions, some poor choices in their lives. And because of it, some great damage was done in the lives of people that were around them. And it's been years now that it's been trying to rebuild, to try to get it back to where it used to be and make it even better than what it was. But guys, be careful. Be careful. Okay? Don't be a pretender. Don't be phony about your life. Be real. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, by golly, then let Christ shine. Amen. Let the words that come out of your mouth, because the Bible says that every word is going to be judged. Even the little jokes. The Bible calls it coarse jesting. Even the little jokes are going to be judged. So we got to be careful. Because, see, the Bible says death and life are in the power of the tongue. Amen? Yeah. Okay? Do you know that you have more power than a witch when you speak a word? If you speak a negativity towards somebody else, if you speak a curse against somebody else, there's more power in your words than what there is in a witch that would speak a curse over your life, over their life. Because death and life are in the power of your tongue, because greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. Amen. And that's what I'm preaching. Thank you for those few minutes. The rest of you, I'll be praying for you. Hallelujah. They see and they sense the passion and the honesty in your worship. I'm not saying that we don't give instruction. I'm not saying that we don't give direction. But people retain most of what they see and feel than what they hear. Do you know that it's said that a person retains approximately about 75 to 80% of what they see? And they only retain about 15% of what they hear. You know that? So I'm here preaching for an hour, and I'm assuming that 15 minutes, at least I'm going to get about 15 minutes of your attention. Because the other 75% is going to take, it's probably going to be wandering somewhere else. You know, maybe your stomach hurts today, or maybe your head itches. Okay? Maybe you're worried about a bill that needs to be paid this week. Maybe you're concerned about, you know, the guy who's supposed to come and sign by tomorrow. You know, whatever the situation might be. So hopefully I'll get 15 minutes of good wordings on you, and the rest will just let the Holy Spirit do what he's going to do. Amen? But I ain't going to come up preaching. Thank you. To be honest, there's no one who can make us worship. Okay? There is nobody on earth. I don't know if you can be the greatest worship leader. You can't make worship. Okay? Nor can anybody not or keep me from worshiping. Okay? Why? It's because worship is a choice of my will. Okay? It's what I choose to happen in my life. All right? When I get up in the morning, I have an opportunity of a decision to make. I've said it before that the first thing out of my mouth, and I don't say it loud because Pastor Dan is sleeping in the bed right there next to me, and so I don't say it out loud, but I say good morning, Lord. Matter of fact, I say good morning, Father, good morning, Jesus, good morning, Holy Spirit. I love you. Now that's a choice that I make. Now, but I find myself at times when I wake up, especially if I'm woken up a few minutes later than what I was supposed to, or if something happened, or maybe even I woke up and my body was acting up on me a little bit, and it was like, and I could very easily just get up and go, gosh. Or I could say, good morning, Lord. Good morning, Jesus. Good morning, Holy Spirit. I love you. I could start off on a good foot. And then believe that what's transpiring is going to leave, and I'll be able to go about my day without having to struggle with that. Is it easy? No. Because we get bombarded with all kinds of stuff. Is it easy to worship, with all that we have when there are people around? No, because sometimes there's noise. Listen, a lot of times when I say come up and when you bring your tithe and offerings to the Lord, come up and worship the Lord and then love on somebody. And how often times that when I finish my prayer and I walk back there, that there's just constant talking going on while people are worshiping. Instead of taking it out the doors, and don't think that I'm getting in the case, but I am. Okay, but you know what? In a time when people are trying to worship, and it's difficult when I'm trying to say, Lord God, and then I'm hearing this person over here and that person over there, and it's distracting. Okay? I mean, that's how it impacts us. I can either block it out. There's a movie. It's with Kevin Costner. For the Love of the Game. It was a baseball movie. Okay? And his whole mindset was this, that when he got up on the mountain, okay, he would stand there and get ready, and all of a sudden he would say to himself, clear the mechanism. Why am I remembering this? I don't know. So, clear the mechanism. And when he said that, all of a sudden, everything, all the guys, you got guys that are in the front row that are calling him all kind of names, of the opposite team. They're calling him stupid. Hey, you ain't no good. Blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, he focuses in on just exactly what it is that he needs to do. And all of a sudden, when he starts to pitch, boom, there it is. Boom, boom, boom. And of course, this game was a game where he pitched no hitter. Right? And so, it was incredible just how he was able to block out all the noise and all the confusion and how everybody was attacking him that was from the opposite side. And he was able to clear that so that he could focus in and do what he needed to do. There are times for you and I in our lives that that's what we need to do in our lives. Even when we get down on our knees in our homes, and we just want to spend some time in prayer, where all of a sudden the phone might ring or the baby might do this, or this person, or something might happen, or the devil will come and he'll say, oh, you know what, that bill's due today, and if you don't pay it, they're going to shut off your electricity, or if you don't pay your rent, they're going to put an eviction notice and everything else. We just shut that thing off, clear the mechanism. Clear the mechanism, and just zero in on what it is that you're trying to do, because I can guarantee you, you get God in the beginning of the day, God will lead you through the process. I didn't say that I didn't take you out of the processes. I said that He'll lead you through the processes, and He'll get you to the other side. Again, Psalms 23 says that yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Okay? Death is out there, in whatever capacity you might want to look at it. It's there. And we're going to walk through those times in our lives, in whether it's a financial struggle, a family struggle, a health struggle, whatever it's going to be. There are things that we're going to have to deal with, and we better know how to deal with those things. And we better know how to stand up strong when we're walking through this. Right. So it's a matter of choice. The choice that's you have the will to either say yes or no. And that choice is determined by who's in control of your heart. If we control our own hearts, then we may find that maybe we're too much into ourselves. We might even be prideful, maybe even embarrassed. We might find ourselves being self-absorbed in the process. We may find it at times too difficult to raise our hands. You ever find yourself at church when the Spirit of God is moving? Wow, I'm tired. You know? We may find it difficult to raise our voices. maybe even to bow our hearts before the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, to bow it long enough so that no one sees or hears us. Okay? You see, pride will cause many to dig their heels in when there's even the slightest pull to enter into the place of the presence of God, where we can honor Him by prostrating ourselves, whether it's physically or just our hearts. One has to be willing to come and worship. But no matter how much we desire, no matter, as a pastor, no matter how much I desire to help others find their place at His feet, it's still the sole responsibility of the seeker to find the one in whom they seek to worship. Even in an atmosphere like this here that took place while we were worshiping, it's still each and every one of our responsibility to get into that place where it's just you. But unfortunately, there's still too many that are in the church today that have a hard time clearing the mechanism, because their thoughts are of other things that are going on in their life. And so they might sing, they might clap, because the beat will get you clapping. Maybe they might even from time to time shed a little tear. But that tear may not be for worshiping God because of who He is. That tear is because they're going through something and they don't have the ability to deal with it. And so they're crying out. But remember, we're talking about worship today. We're not talking about concerting or performing. All right? We can lead by example when our hearts are pure. We can invite everyone to join us, yes, but ultimately each one of us must choose for ourselves whether or not we want to enter. How many times do we find ourselves, you know what, I have to question myself, even when I'm sitting on the platform, on the piano. Okay, and I've got, listen, okay, I have a mixer board that I try to make sure that everybody's blended. I have to add some sound and everything else. I've got a foot pedal that I have to take in to sustain when I'm playing to make sure that the notes are held. I've got a microphone that I've got to sing into. I've got another foot pedal on my left-hand side that engages what I have up there. It's called a vocal harmonizer. Okay, so that when I want to fill in some of the gaps that may be there, okay, to create some harmonies and stuff like that. So I'm constantly, and then I'm trying to hear the Holy Spirit. What do we do? Do we sing the verse again? Do we sing the chorus again? Do we end it? How do we do that? So I've got all these things that are going through my mind when I'm up there worshiping. And I've got to make sure that I've got to focus in on saying, okay, whatever it is that you want. All right? So, but I've got a pedal here, I've got this here, I'm looking to see if it's engaged or not, you know, because I want to make sure, you know, I want it to sound nice. I want to be able to take it to have a pleasant sound coming out from the platform and stuff like that. And then, of course, I've got the worship team that I have to lead. So when you see me doing this, you know, okay, you know, I have to be able to know where I'm going so that I can take and lead them. And then as they follow, then we're hopefully, as a unit, if we're doing our jobs right, then we're able to lead you into that place to come into the presence of God. Because that's the whole thing. Okay? So again, I'll ask you, who's got your heart? Who's got your heart? Okay? So what if that person next to you doesn't sing? What if that person in front of you, what if they're not clapping their hands? That person behind you, what if they're not stomping their feet? What's that to you? What's that to you? Amen? What does that have to do with whether you can or cannot? You see, unfortunately, in too many places, we've learned the art of working crowds. Ouch. Think about it. We've learned the art of working the crowds. In other words, what we do is we take and we create an emotional stir that's able to manipulate people to do what we want them to do. Okay? Here at Radiant Church, my Lord, I hope we never learn how to manipulate. Okay? And as long as I'm the pastor here, Okay? I'll scold me. Yeah, I'll scold me. Okay? If I find myself trying to manipulate you to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. Trying to get you so that, get ready for this, so that I feel good about myself. Remember last week? Worship should never be, when we finish, did I do a good job? Okay? Did I impact the people? That should never be my prayer. My prayer should always be, my thought and my concept should always be, Lord, were you happy with what you did? John, the 4th chapter says that you're looking for true worshipers. Did we fulfill your heart today? Never did I get you to do what I want you to do. Times we pull on the emotions of individuals. I've seen it. I've been a part of ministries that have pulled on the emotional strings of the people, and the people responded only because their emotions were touched. But you see, the problem is that then they would leave the building and they go back to everything that was going on in their life. And there was never a change that really took place and transformed in their lives. But again, when you come into the presence of God, you're changed from glory to glory. See, there's a newness about you. There's a new level that you and I have got to come up when you get into the very presence of God. You can't be the same. When Moses spent 40 days and nights up in the mountain with God, when he came down off that mountain, listen, it wasn't just the fact of what God spoke to him, but the very essence radiated that his hair and his face was so bright with the light of God that the people got scared to look at him because of the presence of God that just changed him. I love the version with Charlton Heston when he comes down and all of a sudden he's got that long white hair. I'm working on it. Amen. I want to show. What was that? Mike, for those who are watching my live stream, Mike said, I'm just working on the hair part myself. Amen. So we pull on their emotions. Sometimes we develop new programs to try to interest them to come. Sometimes we manipulate the minds of those, and even to the place where we give it a title. We call it the anointing. Okay? You see, we've somehow lost the art of capturing the heart of God. So now our platforms are filled with entertainers. Think about it. Am I speaking truth?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know that, if you think that I'm preaching some kind of heresy, no, it's not. Listen, I'm not saying that all of the body of Christ around the world, are not worshipers. Okay? But there's too many examples that we're seeing, and there's too many people that are following what is a manipulated worship rather than a true heart worship. And I say that because when I see the lives of the people still being the same and there was no change, then there was no real true heart that was in the worship that they gave. Because again, when you get into that place, you are changed in your life. Okay? You can't be the same. Okay? You can't live the same type of life that you lived. You can't act the same way that you did. You can't be Mr. or Miss Nice person in the church and be nasty when you get home.
Amen.
All right? There's got to be a change in the life of the church. Listen, I look at the setting of what's going on around the world, and a lot of the world don't want anything to do with the church. Because they act like they do when they're at work or when they're at home. How many times have I been around somebody that's in the church that they find themselves, when they were in the workplace or when they were just hanging out doing something else and stuff like that, and all of a sudden they start telling these little crude jokes. And they think it's cute. And I'm sitting here going, Lord, is that what we're supposed to be doing? Okay, Listen, I'm all for laughing. I'm all for having fun. Okay? But I'm at a place in my life that I'm all for Jesus. Okay? And if I have to talk tough sometimes to take it to get you to understand that this life that we live, it's not a life that we need to be playing with. We need to get serious about this life that we live. And live it every single day, not just on a Sunday morning. Okay? Okay. We've learned the art of how to merchandise the anointing as well. Listen, I have no problems with business. Okay? I have no problems with business. But when you're in the ministry, you're called into the ministry, okay? And you use the ministry to propel yourself, you use the substance of the ministry to propel yourself, then there's a problem. Okay? There are books, there are tapes, there are CDs, there are MP3s, there are flash drives, there's television, there's radio, there's everything that is spreading the gospel, and that's wonderful. Okay? That's wonderful. Okay? I have no problem with a minister being able to live and to be able to glean from what he has done. Listen, if the business world, if a CEO can make $1 million a year by a business that he started and he's created and it generated that kind of funding, then praise God, let him have it. And if a minister has created a ministry where he has taken and he has grown by leaps and bounds, and people have blessed him by being able to do that, and he's doing a lot of wonderful things with what he has, and yet still has enough money to be able to enjoy himself, then praise God and let him enjoy it. I have no problem with a minister being able to live a good lifestyle. Okay? As a matter of fact, if you really want to be honest, the Bible says that a minister is not only worthy of his hire, but a minister who preaches the gospel is worthy of double. Okay? So I want you to understand, I have no problem with people being able to have. Again, 3 John, beloved, I wish above all that you prosper, be in health, as your soul prospers. All right? For those of you that want to know, 3 John 2. Okay? But we've learned to merchandise the anointing. When the Spirit, listen, let me give you an example so you understand what I'm saying. How many have ever been to or have ever seen where something happens in the ministry of a person, and all of a sudden, what they did is they begin to market that thing that happened. In other words, if you've got, well, let's say the healing ministry, Benny Hinn. Now, I'm not talking about Benny Hinn, I love Benny Hinn. Okay? But the healings that take place in his ministry. Okay? Well, what happens is that we begin to market that the healing part of the ministry, and the focal point of your ministry now becomes the healing instead of focusing in on who gives the healing. Okay? When you see manifestations where we've been in services where teeth were filled with gold. Okay? But what happens is that it's marketed to the place where people are coming because they want the gold. They're not coming to get the one who gave the gold. They want the gold. Okay? I've heard it where there was feathers that would all of a sudden appear in these services, and so people would come because of the feathers. Or maybe there was oil. I've had oil on my hands when the anointing was so strong, where I could lay hands on people. You know, when you get oil in your hands, or when you feel like your hands are on fire, that means you got a healing anointing. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you ought to go out and make a business card and say, I'm a healer. So you hear what I'm saying? Okay? Because what's happening is that now it's all about you. And when we've lost the ability of making it all about the one that gave it in the first place. Okay? So we merchandise the anointing. And we manipulate it simply for our own personal gain. And there are people that are up there. Unfortunately. But not everybody's like that. Okay? We're not manipulators of emotions. nor do we desire to merchandise the power and the presence of God. What we endeavor here at Radiant Church is to simply do is to worship. Focusing in on who He is and what rightfully is. Okay? Listen, Matthew 6:33, you seek first His kingdom, His righteousness. All these things will happen. The things that you need will happen. But you see what it says? It says, seek first His kingdom. In other words, focus in on Him. Glorify Him. Worship Him. Stop going after His hand. Let's go after the face encounter. Okay? Let's go after that face encounter so that we can simply worship Him. You see, that's our responsibility. And that's what the Father in heaven is looking for. Okay? He's not looking for hypocritical worship. He's not looking for phony worship. He's looking for the real thing, the real deal. And you and I have the honor and the privilege to be that every day in our lives. All right? Look, it's each one's choice whether to participate or to spectate. What do? Are you a spectator when you come to church? Are you looking at what's going on up on the platform? Okay? Are you listening to what we sound like? Or are you allowing yourself to enter into that place where we're trying to bring you? And that's to visit with our Father. Are you a spectator? Or are you a participant? Regardless of what anybody else says. Regardless of the ridicules, the mockings, and even the judgments that you might find yourself facing. Our attitude should be like David's when he had the Ark of the Covenant brought back to Jerusalem. I want you to look at 2 Samuel chapter 6. I'll read it out of the NIV. It's not up on the screen, so if you got your Bible, if you got a Bible app on your phone, hold it up. You got your Bible? 2 Samuel chapter 6. Starting with verse 14. Look at this. You know what? Let's go to verse 12. This is a story about the ark being brought back to Jerusalem. Verse 12 says, now David was told the Lord had blessed the household of Obed-Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. You know the ark represents the presence of God. Okay? And remember, you and I, we are the temple. We are the human ark of God. So you're blessed. You may not know it, but you're blessed. Okay? So let's read on. The Lord had blessed the household of Obed-Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. So David went down and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. When those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. Verse 14. Now David, wearing a linen ephod, danced before the Lord with what? All his might. Did he hold back on anything? No. With all his might. Okay. While he and the entire household of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sounds of trumpets. Verse 16. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal or Michal, however you pronounce the name, the daughter of Saul, watched from a window, and when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, what did she do? She despised him where? Her heart. Say again, I ask, who's got your heart? All right. Verse 17, they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. After, verse 18, after he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and the fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites. Both men and women and all the people went to their homes. Now watch this. Verse 20. When David returned home to bless his own household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, disrobing in the sight of slave girls and of servants as any vulgar fellow would do." But it gets better. Verse 21, look at David's attitude. David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people, Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls that you spoke of, I will be held in honor." Verse 23, and Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. What was David's attitude? I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. You're not what's governing how I live my life. You're not going to tell me how to approach my Father in heaven. You see, the problem is that pride. The problem is that fear of humility. The problem is that our insecurity is what keeps us from being able to become vulnerable by exposing our heart to God. See, that's the problem we face. Is when we expose our heart, because who's got it? When we expose it, we may not like what we see. And you see, and because we recognize, because we know better, that God who is holy, God who is righteous, God who is all-loving, God who is simply God, if he sees the corruptness in our hearts, he may not like us. So we hold back. But you see, if you're ever going to get it right, you have to become vulnerable. Exposing your heart to him. People will be crude. Many of us, if not most of us in this building, have dealt with people that have been crude in our lives. People will hurt us to the core. Okay? But remember Jeremiah 29 again. The plans that I have for you, not to hurt you, not to harm you, but plans to give you hope, plans to give you a future. That's the God that's crying out to you and me, that is simply saying, come. Come to where I am. But when you come to where I am, come expose yourself. Okay? David wasn't dressed in his royal garb that kings would wear. He was pretty much almost stripped naked. Okay? He made himself vulnerable as the leader of a nation. He made himself vulnerable to the place, not caring what they thought, what they said. Simply, you're what's important to me. Amen. And that's all that matters in this world. So he chose to worship God and worship God alone. The Hair Radiant Church, you're more than welcome to join us. As we, as the praise and worship team, get ourselves together, and as we begin to start leading, you have an opportunity to either join us or just to watch us. The choice is yours. You can lift your hands as an act of worship before the Lord, or you can allow the exhaustion of what you did throughout the week to weaken you from being able to be everything that you can be. Because remember, we're to worship God with what? With all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. The choice is yours. Okay? understand is that it's going to cost. There's a cost that's at stake. And the cost is simply you. It's not that person next to you. It's not that person behind you or in front of you. It's not the pastor. It's not the worship team. Okay? It's you. I said this the last time. I said, somebody's asked me, to pray for them so that they can get the anointing that I have. Really? I've got 65 years of pain. I've got 65 years of grief. I've got 65 years of hurt and rejection, discouragement. Not by God. Because every time that somebody did something to me that put me in a position that I was not able to function, God took me from that place and put me in a situation that comforted me and made me better. So you see, I love my God. The reason why is because every time that somebody said no to me, God always said yes. Now there are times when God may say no, but that's because He knows that we're not ready for it. Like that $1 million some of you have been asking for. Okay? God, and just because you haven't heard a no, okay, that doesn't mean that maybe God doesn't want you to have it. But are you ready to be able to handle it? Okay? Just like Moses, we talked about last time, you're crying out for the anointing, you're crying out for the very presence of God. God, I want to see you face to face, I want to see your glory. Can you handle it? I can't. But I'll put you in the cleft. And I'll pass by while I put my hand to kind of hide you. And let's just get a little taste, a little glimpse. And that'll be all right. That won't get you. That won't hurt you. Okay? But the more we put ourselves, the more we get ourselves into that position, into that place of worshiping and of being real and honest with God, then the more God's going to be able to take His hand off of what we can see and what we can have in our life. Yeah. You are the price that's required to be a worshiper of the Lord. When you learn to give yourself freely and completely, the rewards that you will be, the rewards that you'll receive will be uncomparable to anything that your mind can even imagine. I like that. But you've got to be honest. You've got to be real. Okay? If you're a pretender, you might be fooling the world. You might be fooling that person next to you. You might even be fooling yourself. Okay? But you'll never fool God. You'll never fool God. You might even be endangering the possibility of losing your own soul. That's interesting. Mark chapter 8, verse 34 through 36, out of the Message Bible. It's up on the screen. Look at this. Calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat. I am, he says. What did he tell Moses when Moses said, who do I say he said? I am. You see, he's never changed. I am. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. You say, what? Serious? Follow me and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is the way. My way to save yourself. Your true self. What good would it do to get everything you want and yet lose you? The real you. What could you ever trade your soul for? Wow. That's enough to make you really think and to consider the life that you and I live. You see, our bridegroom, he knows our hearts. He knows our heart. He recognizes our sound. You ready for this one? He's very familiar with our fragrance. Because the offering that we give is not so much of what is coming out of your mouth. Okay? But it's of the burning of the heart, the passion, that releases the fragrance that attracts the bridegroom to the bride. Wow. He's very familiar with our fragrance. John 4 tells us that he is searching the world over to find his bride. And that's you, and that's me. The one who will lavish him with a real heart filled with love and adoration in your worship of him. Not those who pretend. You know, he would rather have no worship at all than to have a prideful, performing, all about me worship. Can I say it again? God would rather have no worship at all than to have a prideful, performing, all about me worship. That's scary. You see, it's not just about pure worship, but a pure worshiper. It's not a perfect worshiper, but a real one. An honest one. That's what God is looking for. Amen? Amen. So which one are you? Who's got your heart? How many want to be a true worshiper? Amen. You know, and it makes no difference how wonderful a worshiper you might be, because we still grow in those positions, in those places. With all that I've come to learn about worship, I have a lot still to learn, to grow. There are things that I hunger and I cry for. And I say, Lord, but I need your help, because sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I fall short. I remember many times when we had our home in Grand Terrace, and I had my studio set up where I was able to go in and just spend hours in worship. And I would do that every single day. I spent hours in worship, and then when I'd come out after when I'm released and I'm done, I didn't just spend an hour, I spent hours. Okay? And when I would come out, I'd go into the living room, and there's Pastor Dan sprawled out on the floor, prostrated before God, because the anointing was so heavy in the house that it just knocked her down, put her down. Okay? You know, I want to have that kind of impact. All right? Because that, then, what it does is it creates an environment for you and I to be able to embetter ourselves and better those that are around us in our lives. And we become producers of society instead of just takers. Yeah. That's why God wants a face encounter, because then we start looking at what we can get. And we're looking at the need of what we can give. Realizing that what I give is not based upon what I can get, but yet knowing that when I give, that I make myself available then, because there's room in me now to be able to receive. And I'm able to receive the next level of what he has for me in my life. Amen? Yeah. Bow your heads with me. While your heads are bowed, I'm going to talk to those that are watching my live stream. Again, God is calling. John, the 4th chapter, he's calling for the worshipers, those that will be real and honest. Those that will say, Lord, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want what I give to you to be pure and holy. But I don't know how to do that myself. And God will say to you, that's okay, because I know how to bring you to that place. Because my spirit that I've left in this earth will show you the way. But you have to have it in your heart. And the only way to do that is by accepting me as your Savior and as your Lord. And by doing that, all you've got to do is by the expression of your mouth, believing in your heart that Jesus is Lord, that he died on the cross, but that he rose from the grave. If you can believe that, and if you can confess that, and if you can ask Jesus to come into your heart and make him your Lord and Savior, then you are now part of the family of God. It's up to you. The choice is yours. We've done our part. Now do your part. And if you've done that, then what you do is find a church. A place that will teach you the Word of God. A place where the presence of God is a real presence and not a manipulated presence. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of churches out there that are good churches. Okay? But there's a lot of places where there's a lot of wolves as well. And just be cautious of that. All right? If you're in Colton, we're at 540 East 8th Street, Colton, California, 92324, or anywhere in the surrounding areas, Fontana, Rialto, Bloomington, San Bernardino, Redlands, LA, San Francisco, Oregon, Washington, New York, wherever you are, you may want to come and just spend some time with us. But until the next time, know that we love you. Know that God loves you. And he's got good plans for you. So until the next time, God bless you. Amen, church. Amen.